Now, some building owners or some building officials are considering not only 2 means of egress, but installing a 3rd means of egress. And this is one of the considerations out there. Now, this is a building actually in Israel that has this already. To my knowledge, there's not one of these yet in the United States. But, as you can see, this is when you've exhausted all the other means of egress. Okay? Wall fan. Okay? Fire towers. You guys, the firemen in your cities that are doing training on these fire towers. I inspected this fire tower probably 3 years ago, and my inspection, when I started hammer testing this fire escape that they were using up to the moment, all the treads started falling. So even the firemen, I got city halls that have broken treads on their fire escapes. No.
Yeah, they have a fire academy here, and they train on it, and there's always water.
Yeah, inside and outside. So we inspect fire towers all the time, and just so you know, metallurgists, and this is from our training because we're expert witnesses in some cases, it takes 25 years to grow a 1/4 inch of rust. It takes 25 to 50 years to grow a 1/2 inch of rust. How many years of unchecked erosion is here? This is the Soldier's Home up in Chelsea. This is where all the farscapes that have since been. This is what some of the load tests look like when there's a failure or a trash truck smacks it. Some of these is that during my inspection, I just hammer test them with a 3-pound hammer. I think this is Haverhill. Broken treads, missing treads. This is the detention center out here by this way, one of those youth detention centers. And I think it's off Route 9.
Oh, Lyman's?
It was, I inspected this one. It just dawned on me, it was out this way. Look at the rust on this fire escape. This is in an inside courtyard. This thing hasn't seen a repair or an inspection in many years.
Does your company come in and sandblast or just cut the thing off the building and redo?
On average, most fire escapes, 90% of the fire escapes get refurbished. With the EPA renovator requirement now, the guidelines are just, what are you going to do with the chips and stuff like that. But just so you know, not all fire escapes have to be replaced. 90% of them, there's enough meat still there. But a lot of times we recommend that treads and gratings get swapped out for new galvanized ones, because that's where a lot of things really collect. Look at all this rust. This is a school down in New Jersey. All the treads that, I mean, it's just. Typical hammer inspection, 3-pound hammer. Good whack. Uh-oh. Now that hammer test is for my safety. There's nowhere in the code that says you got a hammer test in fire escape. That's a critical examination to see if it's safe for me to walk up that thing. So a 3-pound hammer. And a lot of times people say, well, you're breaking these, you're breaking these treads. And I said, well, I'll give you a brand new tread. I'll put 4 new bolts in it. I'll give you a 3-pound hammer. I'll say, shear those treads for me. You'll start smashing along, and you'll break your wrist before you can shear brand new bolts. And as you can see, all I did was just hammer tested one side, hammer tested the other side, and it just gave way, because that's you coming up or down during one of your inspections. We're going to teach you never to go out and look at a fire escape by getting physically on it. From down below or from the door, you can look out and you can see that it's been maintained or it hasn't been maintained, and that's all we're going to teach you. And all you need is evidence that it's been the original hardware has been swapped out. Because usually in 50 to 75 years of something left outside, how often do you think you should see a bolt change of some kind if the fire escape is 75 years old? Do you expect to see all the treads at least once changed out? So you don't want to see hex heads on those, square heads on those anymore. You want to see some hex. On the supports that held the platforms that I'm going to be doing my load test, do you want to see the old rivets, the old square heads, or do you want to see some new hex heads on that? And the tiebacks into the building, do you want to see that verified, or do you want to see a new epoxy bolt right next to it so that now you're at 200%? So that's what we're going to talk about. Because when you start looking, a lot of your fire escapes, and I mean 80, 90% of every fire escape you're going to see in your downtown area, all the original hardware is still there, and there's no evidence of maintenance. Evidence of painting, But once you've let a fire escape rust, and it's 75-year life, you've let it rust at least once to the full rust, has every connection been compromised? Has water got into every connection? Because the only way you stop water from getting into a connection, you gotta keep it painted. Well, there was a period there, back in '55, that we didn't paint it at all, and it got 100% rusted. And what kind of violation did you write? A scrape and paint violation. Guess what the client did? He got a couple of bids. He called Joe the painter on a 5-story, and he says, Joe, I got a violation from one of my inspectors. He said, scrape and paint my fire escape. And he took that and he said, oh, how much to paint this fire escape? 5-story was $2 grand. I said, okay. And he does his little walkthrough and says, oh, by the way, you got some broken treads. You're gonna get, oh, I got this other ironwork guy that I'm gonna call. So he calls the ironwork guy. He says, hey, I got a violation. I got a couple of treads. Can you tell me how much to fix the fire escape before I paint it? He goes, oh, I paint the fire escape. So the guy comes down and he says, oh, you got not just a couple of treads, you got a lot of problems here. I can repair your fire escape and paint it to remove this violation for 20 grand. Which one he picks?
His kid with a spray can.
So now he's like, because you only wrote, and I've got people, when I call up, I says, oh, I got a scrape and paint violation, I want you to scrape and paint my fire escape. How much? I said, no. They want a critical evaluation and then a paint. No. They hang up on me. They don't want to hear me. They want to hear the guy that says, oh, yeah, they want a scrape and paint, I'll give you a scrape and paint. So you got to stop writing scrape and paint. What you have to write is repair, paint, test. When you write the word repair, what's it mean? Critical examination by somebody. When you write the word paint, what's it mean? EPA renovator must paint your fire escape to make sure that the lead doesn't get into the building. Test, what's it mean? Give me a certification, a guarantee, or a load test that this fire escape is good for the tenants to get out, firemen to get in, and for the tag on it. We're going to go over the tag, so I'm going to start now. Here's what happens when there's fire escapes that are have some problems. We've got fire escapes out there that are missing rails, the skinny platforms. We have fire escapes that need answers, such as spirals. So this is in Cambridge, so we can answer and put fire escapes on every building. Here's a load test, a live load test that went wrong. 3 kids were watching the fireworks up there. And this is a college out in Iowa. We were brought in to inspect. That's the fire escape on the ground. That's their blood. And what happened was, see that lag bolt right there? That platform right there, and there was another brace right there that had the stair that went back. That brace used to have a through bolt with a plate on the inside. But when the guys redid the shingles and redid the siding, he put it back through a 1/2-inch hole. He put a 1/2-inch lag bolt. Lag bolt inside a hole that was already drilled for it. It was nice and easy. You can put it in with your finger. So what happens is this thing fell, hit the roof, and hit the ground. Nobody died, but 3 kids got permanently maimed. This is our inspection, and like CSI, where do they put the fire escape and all the pieces? In a secure location or an open field down the street? So down the street in an open field, we find the pieces of this fire escape because we're trying to destroy the evidence, and they forgot about the bolt. So we found the bolt in the field, still in the platform. So, and then they put the fire escape back. Not only did they put it back, but now they put it back, this is what it used to look like. Inside they put a plate, and they still put a leg to the ground. Do you need both? Do you need the bolt, through bolt to the building and a leg? This guy didn't know what he was doing, because not only did he put a leg on it, he put it onto the asphalt shingles. There's not even a footing, they just jammed it on there. And you see at the bottom, right there, I actually went there, because then he put legs on it, because it didn't used to have legs. So you can imagine the torquing that this thing was doing. I actually was able to go there, and we did this, and we grabbed the bottom, lifted it up, and walked it to the left, took a photograph, and then walked it back. Because where it was supposed to be lag bolted to the corner, the guy didn't even lag bolt it back to the corner. So you got to be careful. Oh, here's another test, live load test. This is in Westborough. The fire escape is there, is now here. But there was people on it. There was a real estate agent, the buyer, the seller, their real estate agent, plus one of the trustees from the building. Live load test. They all fell under this mangled piece. They slid from up there, and they landed on just 1 story down. That's why they all didn't die. They were all able to call their lawyers.
Where from? Where?
I think it's down by, I think it's Foxborough, I believe. Down by Woonsocket, I think it's Foxborough.
Foxborough?
Fox.
No, not Foxborough, Foxborough. Boxborough, right? No, it's down by Woonsocket, the name is, but it's,
Westborough's up in my district.
I'm sorry, it's way down by, it's down by Rhode Island. I apologize, the name escaped. Talking about Box. Way down by the Woonsocket area, but you know, on the mass side. Here's another fire escape that was a live load test. A fireman was saving a woman, fell through. The two treads let go and a fireman fell through. He had to go back up and get her. Permanently injured. We were called on this case. We were there 2 years later and inspected the fire escape. Those two treads were perfect. Guess what was wrong with the fire escape? Everything else. 2 years later. So, let me get to a nice shot here that you guys... Who inspects the fire escapes? Massachusetts? Engineers? And there are others acceptable to the building official. Architects in some states. So like you said, if you're going to let an architect inspect in your city, ask for credentials and ask for samples of their inspection criteria. Some people think city officials, oh, the city official was just here yesterday. He didn't see anything wrong with the fire escape. He inspects it. There's nothing wrong here. Why are you picking on me? I'm like, because your city official doesn't inspect fire escape, but people think they do. And fire escape inspector. You know, there's two licenses in the United States. The so-called the G3 license out of Boston is a license, but also out of California, LA, it's called a Reg 4 license. I hold both licenses. There's no other fire escape license in the United States other than the G3 license out of Boston and out of LA.
So Boston issues the G3?
You get a G3 automatically if you know how to put a little window guard together and a couple of railings. And by the way, you can now handle fire escapes because you have an ornamental shop and you sort of...
I thought they're stricter now on it.
I thought so too, but that's what we're trying to work on. We're trying to see if there's going to be, when you have an inspector that claims to be a G3 licensed inspector, what are you going to ask for? Credentials, sample inspection reports, and inspection criteria. He'll sit down with you and if he convinces you that he knows exactly what to look for, right? We have all that. We have all that information ready to give and show, right? If we're doing the work also because it's a niche market, some guys inspect and repair. If I'm in repairing, can I inspect too? Or do I have to bring it in an outsider?
There's no conflict.
Right, so if you bring in an engineer, that's the overseer. And that's what you got to do. In Massachusetts, you got to start separating the inspectors from the vendors. And if they want to be both, that's the one thing you got to look at. Because the G3 right now is used in some cities, but not allowed in other cities. They only want structural engineers. The G3 people can go in and just fix the fire escape, but they can't sign off on the fire escape. Okay? So in California, it's a $1,000 filing fee, 100-question test, meeting with the fire official, site visit to a fire escape to show them that you know how to inspect the fire escape. Then you got to submit the paperwork correctly, and if you don't, you have to start the process all over again. So, in some state, and that's the only state that has a fire escape license, it's a Reg 4 license. It's not as rigid here. I've sent off a letter to Gary Moshe saying that we need to reinvestigate. I wanted in Boston to have an F3 license, or a G3-F license, to basically say anybody that wants to touch fire escapes should come in and prove to the officials that they have the extra credentials associated just with fire escapes to do that. It's been 2003 till now, it's hard, but if anybody here knows anybody that can sort of help, clarify that issue, please let me know who that contact is, and I'd be more than happy to help out. I have the industry standard documentation, I have everything to basically make it so that anybody can inspect, anybody can have guidelines. These guidelines that had to be made because they didn't exist since 1930.
Do you have any checklists?
Yeah, on the fire escape? Yeah, it's on the conference list. I'm going to get to it right now on... So, we're back to the adequacy. We're going to be examining and or testing and or certifying. Boston called it a certification. Does anybody else have another certificate in their city? A document of any kind? If you want, you're welcome to use the Boston certificate, but all it says is to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, this fire escape is in conformity with the building code, 101.
We probably want to make a change to the code because you use the word stair ridges, and I know it's not for vehicles, but we don't have that language again. We just have all exterior stairways and fire escapes. So any pedestrian bridges, I wouldn't, and it can be a...
Very rare do it, pedestrian bridges. It's an odd thing, I'm just saying. It was in the code. You know what I'm saying?
We took it out because I think the intent was for pedestrian bridges, but they thought it meant bridges under DOT on the
Right.
criminal law, so they struck it.
Other codes throughout the country is pretty much the same. This is all New York has to their code, very similar. Paragraphs, 2 or 3 sentences, they say the same thing. All fire escape must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. In New Jersey, any building that is part of a schoolhouse, charter schools, you know how many charter schools are now occupying buildings that are former office buildings? And their fire escapes do not meet the code. And you have 2 alarms, what do you call it, fire drills, one announced, one unannounced. They're supposed to use the fire escape as per the code. So how many teachers are forcing their kids out the window to a fire escape if that's one of their means of egress?
Well, the fire department has that, I believe, here, so you may want to be doing this from sending out from the fire officials, because they're the ones who are putting all the children out on these things.
Well, here's a typical fire escape inspection. This is a New Jersey inspection. This fire escape, in your eyes, pass or fail? Okay. I did the inspection on this fire escape. The reason I got called on this is because of a policeman answering a call fell through one of the treads. An engineer inspected this fire escape. Now, this is not to talk bad about engineers. There's bad inspectors, bad engineers, bad vendors, bad everybody. An engineer said fix 2 things. Fix that tread, fix 2 or 3 other connections, and this thing will pass. He's showing his letter. Actually, this is the, I think this will go into this, but let me just go right to the letter. This is the engineering firm signed, and he has 3 things he has to do. Scrape the fire escape, fix that tread, and fix a bend. I came in and I took the fire escape and I shut it down. I said, this thing's going to hurt or kill somebody. Who's right and who's wrong, who's better, who's not. It's not about that. It's because there's what's called a drive-by opinion. And you can have an opinion. You go, it doesn't look too bad to me. But where's the critical examination? So now, this is the kind of things that we're looking for. We're looking at rust that takes 25 to 50 years. This is the life of rust. When it first gets built, the first thing that happens on every fire escape is called surface rust. You can easily remove that, paint it, it does nothing to the structure if you keep it painted. The second thing that happens to a fire escape, if you don't paint it and you paint over the rust penetrates the connection and it starts the process. Once it gets through the connection, that connection, even though the bolt is still good, that bolt is being eaten every day. So that fire escape fails the test because now I can visually see rust in the connection. You let it go a little bit longer, and now it's got a 1/4 inch. As soon as it's got a 1/4 inch, it eats the bolt, it eats the rivet, pushes the 2 metals apart, and guess what happens? Now I don't have that pin there, because even though it ate through, sometimes it's sitting on that pin. As soon as the rust pushes it away, what happens? And then the last thing that happens is you step on it. You step on it. It's never the landlord. One of the greatest things that should be put in the code is that all landlords in the United States that have fire escapes should collect their rent through the fire escape. Mandatory. You have to put your check out the window, and all landlords have to go up the fire escape to collect their rent checks. A lot of fire escapes would be a lot better nowadays, but they can't do that. So it's this kind of rust. This is that fire escape that we looked at. This is part of the investigation of that fireman that fell through. And this is the rust that was still on that fire escape. And as we were walking up to do this investigation, treads were still falling under our feet.
Sir,
Yep,
go back to the engineer's letter.
sure.
Where's his stamp?
It's at the, well, that was his first letter, but his stamp is at the bottom. All engineers usually put the seal right at the
Can we
bottom.
go back?
Sure.
Maybe just the imprint.
Yeah,
Just the-
yeah, but usually at the end when they give you this is an opinion first. This is not the same with certified. This is what you got to do. At the end, when he's done, he would issue the same letter on his letterhead saying the fire escape is structurally sound and has been kept painted, and then he would put a seal at the bottom. Okay? And on the confidence test, which I'm going to share with you on the back, there's a place for the seal. Thank you. There's a place there for the permit number. There's a place there for your name. There's a place there for the fire official's name. There's a place there because again, we've married all the known documents that are out there, including the Reg 4 documents, which I'll share with you and tell you how we came up with some of the confidence tests that we have. because a lot of it is a mix of everything that's currently out there, but there was no confidence test, so we made one, and you have a copy in your folder there, so I'll get to it right now. Now, this is how all fire escapes are built. A lot of them are into masonry buildings or through wood structures. All masonry buildings are 8 to 12 inches deep. That's all it is.
How are they connected? How are they attaching to this?
It's just a pocket of cement, and the piece of steel goes in there, and there's no cross piece or anything. It's just pocketed in there.
That's it.
Now, how do we verify that? That's one of the questions. If I'm going to load test your fire escape, the one thing that I have to do when I have photographs of it, I have to drill next to this and drill right next between the steel and the cement and verify that there's no rot on the inside. If I have 20 of these, I was going to do a sampling on every floor to verify that there's no water getting in. Now, the work it takes for me to drill that hole and then repack it, if I was to drill the same hole 3 to 5 inches away, put an epoxy bolt, a Hilti epoxy bolt 8 to 12 inches deep, then mechanically fasten this thing back to this connection, do I need to verify this connection anymore? Can I just repack it and seal it and let sleeping dogs lie? So have I eliminated about 3% of a fire escape, which is the unknown, which I don't understand, I can't verify this connection, but as soon as I drill this, it cost me $25 to go through the whole process of putting an epoxy bolt next to it. It cost me $300 to investigate it and open it up and check, because I'll show you some investigation photographs. So that's how it is. That's all it is. It goes through the veneer and then 8 to 12 inches deep into the masonry wall. That's every fire escape in the United States that's in a masonry building. This is how they're attached. What about the bottom, where it goes in? Can I take this out of the building? Can I put an angle next to it so that it's a pressure plate and eliminate these pieces of steel going into the building? Yeah. But a lot of buildings are getting this because water's getting driven. You get the rusty tiers right underneath it. Inside, some masonry, very few of them, are through bolted. They actually have a rod that comes in, picks up the bricks on the inside with a plate of some kind, and there's a sandwich. A lot of times, otherwise, through bolts are only used for wood structures. Everything else is masonry, but the work that's associated with opening up those masonry holes is a pain.
Have you ever had any failures because the masonry ties corroded out and the facade itself was failed?
Yeah, that's one of the things we'll talk about. Aside from, we recommend that all fire escapes get truly load tested if they're 50 to 75 years old, at least once every 25 years. And that's one of our recommendations. And not only is it a fire escape being inspected, it's actually a facade inspection, because we recommend that as part of the inspection wherever the facade is 50, 75, or 100 years old, that it's really a critical evaluation as to whether this whole wall.
I get a lot of buildings with the brickwork is moving, falling away, and the ties are all rotted out.
Oh yeah. I got photographs of rotten tile. You can grow moss, you can grow all kinds of things if you give walls enough water. So if you want a little garden on your wall, we have those. Water getting in just rots these things out. This is an inch worth of rust. This is a photograph out of the Boston Library. That's 50 years of unchecked corrosion. Grow ferns, you can grow a lot of things on fire escapes nowadays. Now, here's another way that you have legs to the ground. So if you have, a lot of them don't necessarily have to be embedded into the wall anymore. You can just have it connected over here, because as long as you have a leg to the ground and a leg here, the building is a leg, the leg is a leg onto a sawmill, you basically have a little bridge. So not everything has to be tied into the building, in this fashion, as long as you have a leg and a leg. So this occurs every now and then when you have the leg to the ground, and it's tied in sometimes with maybe a 5 or 8 inch anchor. This happens. When a truck smashes, water gets in there, it's the blow up. This is water inside blowing the bricks out. And this happens because the veneer, water got in between the veneer and the masonry, got in there, expanded, and boom, blew it right out. And this is the only other way that fire escapes get bolted, and that's on a wood structure. It's got to have a through bolt. If you ever walk up to a fire escape and you got 8 lag bolts holding a fire escape on a wood structure, it's illegal. It's It's only a matter of time before all those 8 lag bolts will whip water to the wood and just rip right off and fall. All wood structures must have a through bolt. Now, if I get to a building in the inside of the bathroom and I can't get at this anymore, my only answer is to put a leg on the ground. As soon as I put a leg on the ground, then this is nullified. Because now, the building is a leg, the outside leg is a leg, I got a little bridge again. Okay, so there's quick fixes for a lot of these things. Cantilevers. You guys know that there's a release arm for cantilevers? They act as an anti-theft device, so people can't pull it down and break into the building. But also when you release it, what happens, which I did on that video, it drops 2 to 3 feet per second, hits the ground and stays down. Otherwise, if it comes down 5 to 10, can it hurt or kill a fireman? Can it hurt or kill a child or a pedestrian underneath? If it goes 2 to 3 feet per second by itself and hits you on the head, will it knock you out a little bit? Will it scrape you up a little bit? But will it kill you? No. Okay? So cantilevers. This is what happens when they're out of balance. Trucks come on from underneath and they just whack them because they're out of balance. And if you put a release arm on them, they are always horizontal. So here's a release arm that's activated, yet the thing is not working. That's what a typical release arm looks like. Can't lift it, can't drop it. Most of them are just so that it doesn't drop. This is what a mess looks like. When trucks hit it, things happen to it. You know, some things just don't make sense when you look at it, like, what the hell is this? This is what trash trucks do to fire escapes. They mangle them, they twist them. There should be a fire watch immediately on this building. And this is immediate repairs that you need, otherwise they've just lost 50% of the means of egress in the building. It's the stepchild of egress, is what you call a fire escape. Fire escapes have the connections at the top, connections at the bottom, holding the entire staircase that are always blown out. This is the part at the top holding the entire staircase. Forget about the treads giving way. How about the whole staircase giving way? This is at a major hotel. The staircase is not even attached anymore. This is 25 stories. Look how much rust to grow an inch. How many times did inspectors walk by this without saying, dude, there must be something wrong with this building? Trucks backing up, into like moving trucks and stuff. They do this all the time. Now, why that? And then it's been there for so many years. I mean, rust has eaten the thing, and it's in a visual location. It's amazing how, if you let rust go, it'll eat everything. How about these spaces on all your old grading? All that is a little barrel. Do you think there's any paint inside there? And there's a piece of raw 3/8 that goes through it, so that it'll keep all the flats separated 1 inch. The day you put it up 50 to 75 years ago, what's happening inside there? It's not rusty. Can we fix this? Can I pull that rod out, put in new spacers? Can I weld that now with EPA requirements? No. Can I make a sandwich with 2 flats and secure that? Yes. Most guys will get in there and put a flat underneath and weld all the flats as a fix for these things. Otherwise, you flip these out, and the grading it's faster and cheaper a lot of times to just swap out the grading. But once these things rot out, you can never get them. There's no repair. Even on the treads, they have the same rod. So we have repair procedures that we're going to be showing, we're going to be talking to as soon as we get into that, the book right there. The repair procedures is, could one of the repair requirements be remove all rust inside the connection? Or you want to leave some there? Remove all rust or leave some? Remove all rust, that's a great repair guideline. On what connection? All connections? Well, we're halfway through, if not 3/4 of the way through our repair guidelines. Remove all rust from any connection. You want to prime that connection? Try putting it back together? Sure. You want to seal it from future corrosion. So you want to inject it, or if possible, if it's impossible, you want to seal it with 50-year silicone?
can't get that certain areas.
95% of all the connections will separate. 95 of all connections, I'll be able to put a chisel wedge it in and get my 1/4 inch. And whenever I can get, and there's, and only a few, 5% of my connections I can't really separate in the moment, but I can change all the bolts out, jam a wedge in there to open it up, take my spray and spray primer into the thing, then inject silicone with a caulking gun, and let it squish back together, it'll lose all out in every direction, and we run our fingers all around it. Have I sealed that connection to the best of my ability? Otherwise, every other connection, every other tread, you just don't repair a tread in position. You take out the 4 bolts, you rip it out of its position. You gotta clean this side, you gotta clean that side, you gotta clean the treads up, put them back, and then rebolt it and seal it in silicone. My clips that hold the fire escape is usually an angle clip that hold it, and that clip comes out. What is it?
What's your average cost to repair?
A 5-story fire escape on average for a 10-year guarantee will probably bring anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 for an average repair with a full paint job. Yes.
I just repaired 2-3 stories for $80,000. Well, we had some extensive damage.
Yeah, again, just so you know, what we're building here, just to give you an example, let's say we have offices in Boston, offices in LA, because we actually work nationwide. But let's just say I wanted to work in Boston. There's 8,500 fire escapes in Boston. You give me a fire escape a day, I got 40 years worth of work plus, but I have to get a crazy crew or whatever. So what we're showing you here, this industry standard guidelines and stuff, is not to basically say that nobody can do this work. It's to basically set the tone so that inspectors are writing the right violations. You will write repair, paint, test. That'll lock people in to get engineers, to get vendors that are licensed, and to decide whether you're going to get a certification or a load test. Yes.
As a building inspector, I think it's dangerous for you to tell somebody how to do something or what to do. I think you're telling them that failure to maintain the fire escape is the right way to go. But when you start telling them they have to paint, they have to do this, then you're locked in because you're now giving advice as to how the problem should be solved.
Well, I'm just using the code. The code says there's 3 parts of your code. There's a maintenance code and there's a certification code. I'm just repeating what the code says. The code says you will maintain your fire escape, which is the paint job.
No, I agree with that, except that you're telling the inspector, telling these people what they should do, and I think that's wrong. The
Yeah,
code tells them what they
he's
should
right, what we need to do is cite the violation.
Right.
That's it. Who cited the violation, and then, you know, we're looking at buildings, and you gotta keep in mind, these guys are looking at everything, fire alarms, sprinklers, and there's different aspects to that inspection, okay? Are they doing a quarterly test? Are they doing the annual flow test? So I would suggest to you that it's more than an inspection, it's maintenance and testing.
Right.
Now, not only for fire escapes, but everything, if you're not doing maintenance, and you can't show a log that you're maintaining the emergency lights, that you're checking them once a year, running the generator, if you're not doing the maintenance, if you're not doing those tests, that inspection's only one part of it. I look at it as 3 different prongs, and if you can't demonstrate to me that you're doing maintenance on the entire building, including the fire escape, you know there's a problem.
We have a 5-year confidence test and a 1-year that we're going to show you. But again, when I say that, for example, in other states with the fire department, they actually have to write something. Repair this tread, or they saw something visual in this, so they either cited the deterioration code or the structural code. So that's what on theirs. So if in your violation you just cite the code, but you don't cite what the problem is. But there's been the scrape and paint violations that we get as the first thing that comes out of the owner's mouth. Not that they show us the violation, very rare. We go, oh, my inspector was just here, 30 years I've owned this building, he's never asked me for this. Now he wants some crazy new code and he wants me to repair and paint my fire escape. So how much to paint my fire escape? That's all they think, that's all. And that's when we start.
You're right there, and I think that from my perspective, we have been doing this, we are getting the certifications. I think where I'm vulnerable is I'm getting more of an opinion letter from the engineer than a guarantee. That's where I think we're vulnerable.
So we're going to move right into that. Let's move it from the opinion letter into an actual final exam for these engineers. Let's go right to it. Again, we talked about all the ladders that are out there. Weighted ladders. Again, so that they drop, they don't come guillotining down. Because you have some ladders you just let go and they go 10 to 15 miles an hour. Those things go straight down. Roof ladder access, that have to be looked at. These flop out ladders that come out and conk people on the head, we have to tell people that those have been a fix that was illegal. Because if I can hurt a kid or a fireman forget the wind blowing these things and knocking somebody in the head, killing a dog. You know what I'm saying? We say that these things have to be permanent or slide ladders. You can't have a flop out ladder. And there's not many up here in Massachusetts, but I've seen in other states where the flop out ladder became where you have to guide it down with your own hand. It's just, these things are a mess. And they'll come down and look like that, but if they come down the wrong time, they can hurt or kill somebody. All right, confidence test. The only thing we have right now in California, which is Reg 4, they must be inspected every year. There's no guidelines on how to inspect. They expect you to, since you're in the business. And in California, an engineer can inspect a fire escape. It has to be a Reg 4. He has to go an engineer has to go get a Reg 4 license. So you got all these guys that can inspect fire escapes in LA that now can't inspect fire escapes because they don't have a Reg 4 and that $1,000. So it's one of those days. We need to make money. So we got, in all of LA, there's probably 25 guys that have a Reg 4 license for fire escapes only. But you know what I liked about theirs? The front sheet. This front sheet that I liked and I used in the confidence test, it gets all the critical information, including permit information, building inspector's information, permit number, and fire department. So we get everybody's information on the front page. That's one of the things I liked. We started generating a confidence test, and this confidence test has page 1, but then we started asking critical questions, yes, no question. Is all the rust removed out of the trip? Is all the rust removed out of the supports? And we hit every critical connection, railings, supports, cantilevers. We asked every single question on here, and there's a structural review and there's a general review, such as, is all the windows operable? Can they get to the fire escape? Is there no obstruction? Is there any lighting? We put it all on there. This is the information that we started sharing, and what we did is we shared this with Seattle and Tacoma, and what they did, because they couldn't use my test, but they used my test as a guide, and they did the same thing. So here's page 1. Has all the critical information, and there's page 2, and they ask yes, no questions. So what you need here in Massachusetts is a critical questionnaire. Now this is going to get you closer and closer to certification, which is the word guarantee, because they're claiming that they've checked all these things. It's no longer an opinion letter. Now, Tacoma has not only a 5-year rule, they also have a 1-year rule where the owner must walk through with an official every year, and they have a 1-page questionnaire, and this is the annual checklist. Now, this annual checklist is the owner comes in and asks these very same questions, after they've passed a 5-year with this engineer. For the next 4 years till the next 5-year cycle, the owner has to walk through, and they can, put this together with a walkthrough by the fire official or building inspector on the yearly inspections of a commercial building. And they have to just answer, listen, I've looked at the supports, I've looked at the paint and all the moving parts, everything looks good. In general, to me, I don't see anything broken, no trees are falling on my fire escape, and they sign, and they hand that during the year of the inspection back to the inspector. So we kind of like that Tacoma wanted the owners involved every year walking through their fire escapes, not every 5 years. So here's the, actually let me show you the City of Boston. This is the City of Boston affidavit. The only thing that's missing is you can take this part out. That's my part. I put that in there. These are little questions that I put in there, but otherwise, this is all you get minus this. They just want to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the fire escape is in conformity with 101.3. That's all you have to sign as a G3 guy or an engineer. So I put in these questions, and some of the stuff I've submitted, up the chain, down the chain, wherever it has to go. And these questions: is the staircase? Is the cantilever? Is there a continuous catwalk? I mean, I popped some of my questions in there, but this is a formal document. So this is just a little bit of an insert on my end, trying to see if I can get the city to say, you need to ask more critical questions, because people are doing this drive-by, fly-by, give me a check in the window, and here's the document for your building inspector. So these opinion letters are coming from, I believe, not just Boston. This is not a Boston batch. Seattle, Chicago, Texas, Corpus. I've been in all these cities. I inspect in all these cities. They all have the same problem we have here. There's no critical review. There's no critical examination by the engineer, because there's no sheriff. Nobody's watching. They just want a piece of paper so I can stick it in my folder. And if the engineer says that it's good to me. But there's no critical review. We created documents, which is the repair guidelines. So we'll send this to you. We can, we took out our name is not in here anywhere, but this is just basic guidelines on how to maintain a fire escape. It tells you what to do with platforms, what to do with treads. And all it says is, we already talked about that, remove 100% of the rust, change the bolt, seal it. I think we're done with the repair guidelines. Oh, by the way, EPA now is in here. You must have an EPA renovator's license. If some of you know it or don't know it, anybody can get an EPA renovator's license. You take a class, you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, by 6 o'clock at night, they give you a certificate. You pay $179, and painters, contractors, everybody, they're just gonna teach you how to handle the lead. And yes, fire escapes, all fire escapes older than 1978. Anybody have any fire escapes newer than 1978? So all your fire escapes have lead, which means you can't weld on them. Well, it's okay, because 98% of them are bolted anyway. Why would you allow weld on them anyway? And every fire escape can be fixed with a bolt and a gusset. And every weld on a fire escape can be reinforced with a bolt and give you that word guarantee, certification. So, we'll talk about the industry standards here. The EPA, the industry standards is, whenever we speak with anybody, we always send them our credentials. We have engineers on staff that basically work with us. Whenever we have a city that says, I don't take a G3 license, we bring engineers from in the area, or, you know, in some cases we have engineering firms that represent 40 states. So I had to have a guy in Iowa. I did a job in Iowa where I couldn't find a local engineer that wanted to sign off. I had to fly my guy in out of Seattle, who's licensed in 40 states, into Cedar Rapids to sign off on a 10-story. He literally flew in that morning. I picked him up, we drove him down, he walked up to the fire escape, walked down to the fire escape, and got back on the plane with me, and we both flew back to Seattle. Because I couldn't find anybody in in Iowa that wanted to sign the document. So these things occur, it just gets, so industry standards. When somebody's inspecting your fire escape, do you expect them minimally to mark up the fire escape? So if I'm an inspector, and my criteria to you is I'm going to come in and I want to mark up the fire escape for Joe that I'm charging either $500 or $1,500. Do you want me to walk with my spray can that I bought for $2 at Home Depot, and I walk up and I say this is no good, and this is no good, and that's no good, and that's no good, and whatever I can reach. I can't, reach places I can't reach, right? And generate a report some kind of photograph. So then I take out my camera and I take photographs. Does it have to be as pretty as this with all this little garb and stuff, or can it be, on your PC you can print 9 per page or 4 per page photographs? Would you want all the violation photographs as part of the submittal when the guy did an inspection? And then after this client gets all his fire escape marked, can Joe homeowner break a bolt and put in a bolt? Can he? If he has the will and the skill, can Joe homeowner change a bolt? Can Joe homeowner get his uncle Freddie, who's a mechanically inclined, to help him fix his fire escape?
No.
Yeah.
Not in the commercial code.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant, right. If it's a commercial, you have to have a licensed professional to do the work. I'm talking about if it's going to be a home repair. Can a homeowner fix his own fire escape?
Sure.
Okay. Now, with this and everything is marked, can a vendor show up now and knows exactly what the engineer wants fixed? So the engineer has a duty, and it's on the certificate. It says that he must identify it on the fire escape with paint. It says right on the confidence test. Or he must, on a drawing, identify what the problems are. How easy does that make it for the vendor to repair the fire escape accordingly? Pulling a permit, the vendor must pull a permit. Do you need a permit to paint a fire escape? No. You need a permit to repair a fire escape. So, isn't that one more set of eyeballs watching it to make sure that the guy's license, workers' comp, renovator's license? It's not happening. A lot of times you guys just get the certificate that shows up in the mail about a property that you didn't even know had a fire escape, and one of the things you don't ask is, was there any work done to this fire escape to make it certifiable? Where's the permit? And that will start getting some of these guys out there that are just welding fire escapes because they're not giving you the guidelines and the criteria. If you want to open up your brochures, let's start talking about tags. We're towards the end. I got another 15, 20 minutes, guys, and then I'll open it up. Anybody wants to see me, give me cards.
Do you want to take a break at all, or do you want to go right to go?
Yes.
I got a thing for you. I hear you where you want to go, but why don't you go through the code amendment process and amend the code? You can put the criteria together, present it to the BDRS, and make it part of the building code.
I can. I've tried. I've made my only contact. Just I've had a lot more success. For example, in Seattle, they've adopted everything that I'm showing you here has been adopted.
Right, but that's Seattle. I'm talking. You could do it in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Oh, I,
Do it.
All you have to do is call up the BDRS, anyone can make an amendment to the code, you put together your lists and everything, if you sell it to the BDRS and they adopt it, guess what? You just fix the entire state of Massachusetts.
if you just tell me who it is, I'll speak with whoever you say I have to speak with.
Tom Riley.
All right.
Okay, why don't we take 5 quick minutes, and come right back. Okay, you guys take a few breaks. 5 minutes, quick.
If anybody wants to give me a card or wants to get a card from me.
Just put on there.
Certification.
Or no inspection will be done.
For sure.